Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. On this episode of the Someone You Should Know podcast, we go back to my high school graduating class, a fellow classmate of mine who's been rocking the desert Southwest. He's in a band called Caliber Red. They lay down some solid rock and roll, and I absolutely love it. I know you're going to love it too. I'm very happy to introduce from Caliber Red my buddy and classmate, Steve Smith. Welcome aboard, bud.
Welcome aboard. Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing me on board. Nice to see you,
I'm
Rick.
so glad to have you. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of days, too, for the class reunion. That's going to be really cool. Steve, I want to find out, how did you make the transition from Hobart, Indiana to the desert Southwest? Was it a gradual transition, or was it right after high school, or how did you get out there?
Well, so to speak. I mean, I've been coming out here to the Southwest. My uncle had lived out here from 1965.
Okay.
He worked for Honeywell out here, and my mom used to send me out for some of the summers throughout my years to come out to Arizona. So I always loved Arizona and had a good feeling that was probably where I was going to end up. And my mother wanted to live here also. Mm-hmm. But what happened is I ended up going into the Navy.
Hey, veteran to veteran. Thank you so much.
Veteran to veteran. And once I got out of the Navy in 1981, I landed here in Arizona because while I was in the Navy, my mom and dad and my family all moved out here to Arizona. And, well, the rest is history. And, of course, the 80s inspired me because music has always been a big part of my whole life. Singing, choir, music, writing, playing guitar. It's just been a major component in everything I do. And the 80s just kind of birthed this guy who just liked to sing and play rock and roll. And, of course, lots of influences of the 80s, obviously.
Awesome. Very good. Now, before we get into the music of Caliber Red, I want to tell you a little bit about the school that Steve and I attended. It's Hobart High School in Northwest Indiana. We won several 4A football state championships in the 80s and 90s. They're called the Brickies. They pay homage to the brick manufacturing that was done in the early 20th century. But there is a term that's synonymous with the town of Hobart, Indiana. That term is Baco, and that basically is a person who indulges in the drug scene. Hobart had plenty of Bacos back in my day. Now, Steve, and you and your brother actually wrote a song to pay homage to the Hobart Bacos. Now, you featured it at our 40th class reunion. And would you mind playing just a couple of bars? I see you got your guitar there. You want to try to strum a couple of bars and play the Hobart Bacos?
The guitar is going to come up, but you'll hear a little bit of the lyrics.
Okay,
so
give us the first verse or so, okay?
Okay. Hobart Bacos, wherever you are, stand up and say your name. Hobart Bacos, wherever you are, we'd really like to see you again. Back in Hobart, we always got high, always had a very good time. On Friday nights, when everybody's out, looking for a nickel or a dime. At the end of the night, all baked out.
Love it.
You know we're higher than you. We're Hobart Bacos wherever we are, and we're still looking for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. That'll be on the EP. That'll be
Me and my brother wrote that in 1974.
Wow.
75.
Amazing. And you said you recently lost your brother, and I'm so sorry to hear that. And he served in what branch?
United States Army.
He was in the Army, and you did in the Navy. Yeah. Thank you so very much for the both of you serving. And once again, condolences on the loss of your brother there, Steve.
Thank you.
It says Caliber Red creates a unique sound that is all of their own. They're known to throw in a couple of cover tunes here and there. Currently focused on getting some more live gigs, writing more music, and getting some good recording sessions in. Can you care to elaborate on that, Steve?
Well, what we did, we were playing lots of gigs. So right before COVID, like everybody else, it kind of put a damper on things. So we kind of went on hiatus. Now, me and my bass player and lead guitar player and all of us write songs together. We found that as we really started to progress, we just really liked writing stuff. So we like to throw in a lot of original tunes. So even when we were out and playing, and we'd play some Rolling Stones and some Ronnie James Dio, some Scorpions, and we'd play a little bit of every genre. But what we really like to do is we throw in those original tunes, and we used to get a lot of good reaction.
Good.
Of what we were able to do. So they were decent songs, and I like being more creative than just playing. I can play anybody's song, the tablature, it's all written, it's all pretty much there, but being able to write stuff is kind of cool too.
Awesome. We're going to talk about the writing process in just a bit, but I want to focus on a song. The first one we're going to feature is one called The Blue and the Gray. I absolutely love this song. I've been playing it over and over again, so if you see a lot of hits on your website there, it's been me for the last couple of days. The Blue and the Gray, give me the story on this one.
Well, Blue and the Gray was really it was when I felt like there was like a civil war going on in this country at the time. I think there was a lot of stuff going on in the election and the rampage of the White House and a lot of different things going on in this country. And I just got inspired to think about just how we still have these undertow of unbridled anguish and craziness going on in this country. And so it's the modern day Civil War kind of composition that I called Blue and the Gray.
It is a great song. We're going to feature that right now on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Caliber Red, featuring today's podcast guest, Steve Smith. The Blue and the Gray from the band called Caliber Red, featuring today's podcast guest, my friend and classmate, Steve Smith. And before we continue, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Someone You Should Know podcast. By the way, we're on the web. You can check us out, SomeoneYouShouldKnowPodcast.com. There you'll find recent news, our archive of past episodes, and a whole lot more. Plus, if you happen to be on that site, please leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. We do appreciate that. We're very blessed to reach so many cities around the world. We want to salute a couple: Arlington, Texas, Concord, California, and Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We thank you so much for tuning in today. And now we continue our podcast interview with Steve Smith of the band Caliber Red. You started mentioning the fact that your bandmates. Let's go ahead and give them some names and some identities and tell us what they all do.
Well, I got Tony Thompson's my good friend and lead guitar player, rhythm guitar. We write a lot of the songs together. I got Ed Mazurek playing bass, and then I got Derek Zeringer playing drums. I actually have a couple of drummers. We've kind of gone through a couple of different drummers, but the three core members of Caliber Red, always together, have been together for 14 years, are Ed, Steve, and Anthony.
Real good. Before we played the song "The Blue and the Gray," we were talking about writing, and everyone gets involved in the writing. Is there a musical writing process, or how does it all come together? You all just have a little idea, you get together and have a little session, or what?
Well, it's kind of funny. A lot of times we will sit, me and Anthony, he plays guitar. Him and I both play guitar. We'll kind of come up with some different riffs. And then I have a tendency to just ad-lib some lyrics when to fit the rhythm. It's kind of like if you watched any of the Beatles in the Abbey Road studios, and when they're sitting there and doing producing, there's a lot of things that go on. At first it's kind of getting a riff, and then it's kind of finding that little pocket of music that just kind of goes together. And then I have a tendency just to be able to I've always had the gift of writing, and I just go in there and I just start throwing things together because my mind takes me on a musical journey, and lyrically I just come up with a concept and I bring it to the boys, and we sit in there, we play it. Next thing you know, we've formulated a great song, and it's kind of cool to do.
I talked to Tommy Shaw of Styx once, and we were talking about the fact that when an idea comes, he keeps a little notebook in the car with him, and oftentimes he'll pull off to the side of the road and jot some stuff down, and then he'll get a hold of like James Young and say, "We got to go to the studio right now. I just got a good one," or something like that. Do you keep a little notepad along by, or what is your?
Well, that's funny. I have what I call just a journal log of all kinds of things that I keep, and as soon as I get them, I may write them down or I'll think of them, and as soon as I get home, I'm in there in my computer and I'm writing the first. I'm like, oh, that's a hook, that's a song, and that's and I have like probably, I don't know, even right now if I went on there, I've probably got about 200 to 300 different songs in there that could be in that creative
nice
flow.
Problem to have, Steve.
I can't help it. Something hits me, and next thing I know, it's let your love flow.
Yeah. Absolutely. What about musical influences for yourself and also for your bandmates?
Well, I think throughout the years, which is kind of strange, I'm the oldest in the band, so which is probably not surprising. I don't feel any older than they are, but they're all about anywhere from 6 to 8 years younger than I am. So there's a little difference between me having a little bit more of the 70s, because I still love the Bad Company and the Led Zeppelin, and and I kind of evolved through those years. Loved the Paul Rodgers stuff in my early years, and obviously the ZZ Top and the Bob Seger, and where me and my buddy Dave Chandler went and seen probably I don't know how many shows when we were teenagers, and that was our whole thing, was to make sure we wore a concert T-shirt to school the next day. But there's a lot of influences. I mean, from Rod Stewart to James Taylor to I have so many. I love a lot of music. Seals and Croft. I was just talking to somebody the other day. I was just like, any of those harmonies and that beautiful melodies that would come across from the ELOs to the, you name it. I'm really touched by any of it, and it inspires me.
Awesome. Very good.
So that becomes pretty natural.
The next song we're going to feature is called Sirens, another great rocker. What's the story behind Sirens?
Well, Sirens was probably in my years of frickin' when I was running loose like a rebel, and it seemed like I was always getting in trouble and things were going on. I always felt like I was running from the law. So I was like, no matter where I went, it felt like I could hear the sirens, and I was wondering if they were coming for me. So I was kind of inspired for that whole episode. I knew quite a few people that. I guess that might have been some of the people I was hanging around with in the early 80s, and that just kind of inspired me a little bit.
Awesome. Very good. We're going to feature that song now. The band is Caliber Red. The song is Sirens, featuring today's podcast guest, Steve Smith.
Look around the corner,
Great music from the band Caliber Red. The song is called Sirens, and it features today's podcast guest, Steve Smith, doing the vocals there. Steve, you guys have done a lot of touring. You've been together for 14 plus years and such. This next section is called Tales from the Road. Now, these are those infamous road stories of getting to a gig, something that happens on stage at a gig, after a gig, driving to and from. You plug in and all of a sudden the fuse blows, or you're at a gig and all of a sudden, there's a fight breaks out in front of the stage, or you realize you get on stage and your pickups are all wrong or whatever. What's a good Tales from the Road for you personally and for Caliber Red?
Oh, well, there's been a few, but when you asked me, when you said that earlier, and I was thinking about it, I was like, I played in a little nightclub called Mama Jugs in a little place called Coolidge, Arizona, which was it was a gig where we usually had a Friday night and a Saturday night opening gig.
Uh-huh.
Well, the first time we got there and got to see the place, we go in there and the stage is set up like Roadhouse, where you're behind a fence.
A chicken wire or something like that?
Yeah, no, but this was chain link
fence, nice.
So first thing that I thought about, I was like, holy crap, man. Do they have wild people in here or what? I figured it was probably bikers, and, we're right there close to the reservation. So you had, an ensemble of
Native Americans and such,
show up there, lots of different cultures and variety of people, which was really cool, but kind of freaked me out. So anyway, we're playing behind this thing, and we're on this stage, and we're cutting loose. Next thing I know, we got these young women that are up in the front, and they're climbing on this fence. Well, they think that the fence is going to hold them. It pulled the whole thick fence off the wall, and they all fell back, and everything went freaking crash, boom. I was like, oh, Lord. So next thing I know, we had a good like 25 or 35-minute break while the manager and the guys in the nightclub there could go in there and repair the dirty deeds.
Oh my goodness, that's a decent one. I like that. That's pretty good.
That was a good one. The fence was like you never knew what you were going to get when you walked in there.
Yeah.
But climbing on the fence was kind of a trip.
Going to feature another song from Caliber Red. This is one I personally added because I found it very infectious, and I think we needed to talk about it. The song's called "Crack the Whip." What's the story on "Crack the Whip"?
Crack the Whip's just a little love story, It's like, getting a little outside your comfort zone.
Yep.
And, talking about just the fast pace of love and being open and willing to do whatever it takes to get it there. And if it means cracking a little whip, then we're cracking some whip, honey.
That's what we're going to do right now. Crack the Whip from Caliber Red, featuring today's podcast guest, Steve Smith.
Lead me to your chamber.
Great song right there. One of my personal favorites from Caliber Red. That's called Crack the Whip, featuring my buddy Steve Smith. Steve and I graduated together, and it's fun because we're getting ready for our 45th class reunion. Steve, I know you're going to be there. I'm going to be there, so we're going to have to get together and make sure you bring your guitar. We'll sing some songs or something like that. We'll blow them away. We'll blow them away.
Candy's husband going to help me out there.
Okay, good. Awesome. Very good. Looking forward to it. Let's talk about the best way for people to find you if they want to book you for an event or something like that. What are your social medias that we can put in the show notes?
We're on Facebook through Caliber Red, but we also are. The main thing is being able to look on Caliber Red Reverb Nation. It's got a lot of our songs and whatnot, and it has access to me. So that you can plug me in, send me a Facebook message or anything on that note. And that's pretty much the way we do it. These days, which is nice, it ain't like the old days. The old days, we used to have to go in there and audition to get gigs. Obviously, now we can just have them go on our website.
Absolutely,
and kind of know that we're talented, or I'll give you a CD. Here you go. We could do this.
All right.
So we book some shows and we've been playing and writing some new music as of recent. So we've been sitting in this room that you're sitting in here is my studio, and we sit with our acoustic guitars, and we've been talking about just doing something lighter and doing maybe like an unplugged acoustical thing, and going into some bigger coffee shops and doing some other stuff and having some fun with that, with doing some of our music, even acoustical version. And thought that would be cool too.
Awesome. Well, good. We'll look forward to that. By the way, if you go down to the show notes, we'll have links to everything that Steve was mentioning a few minutes ago. Of course, Reverb Nation, get a chance to listen to all the music. As a matter of fact, that's where I got all the music that you heard today on Reverb Nation. So I'll give you the link and also Steve's Facebook page and such. And we're going to wrap up the show with an acoustic song called Trapped. Do you want to give us the story on Trapped, Steve?
Yeah, well, Trapped is... me and my guitar player, Anthony Thompson, we got together, and funny thing about that is nothing funny about it. His father had a stroke and had a hard time being able to converse and express himself, and had a lot of issues. And he had some hook lines in it with Trapped and had some of those lyrics in there. And then he said, Steve, here, take this and do something with this. And as I started reading and listening to the music and what we had associated with it, I started thinking about my own battles in my early life. I'm a licensed therapist these days, so I help people with that struggle with addiction and co-occurring disorders. So I've dedicated 32 years of my life doing that. I'm a clinical director of a big program out here in Arizona, and so I wrote this song really about the struggles of addiction and not being able to really understand what it's like to be just trapped inside your head, and not having a means for managing it on any other level. It gets a little heady, I guess, but I really think these are some of my better lyrics when it came to conveying some of the struggles that are associated with. So I hope you all enjoy that song. It was done it was just a live little version. That is just me and Tony raw in that recording. It's nothing special about it other than just me and him and a beat up guitar and his recording equipment computer.
Awesome. I was getting a little fade to black from Metallica. That opening.
It starts off when you hear that A minor. You want to go there until we start breaking out into the other.
Yeah, I'm going. I was wondering
if I'd ever get sued for
no.
Fade to black. But,
no, I really liked it. We
don't go to the G. We don't go to the G. So if you went to the G, you'd be fade to black. So we don't go there.
Great stuff right there. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Someone You Should Know podcast. My guest has been Steve Smith. Steve, thanks so very much for being my friend for all these years, and thank you so much for taking the time from your Monday night and joining me. I really appreciate that, my friend.
My pleasure. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Living in my head, thoughts that come to mind can't be said. sound. It's hard to understand why I'm bound. Sometimes I cuss, sometimes I yell. That's not the man I used to be. Held captive in this place that no one sees. A prison for only me, trapped inside my head. Looking outside the window, a portal to my soul that no one knows. Is this place real? The ones that love me most, it's surreal. Sometimes I come
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.